the very best in motorsports entertainment, reach for Diamond P Video. From NHRA Championship drag racing to the World of Outlaws sprint cars, Diamond P gives you the best seat in the house for motorsports. And with more than 20 spectacular titles to choose from, you can build a video library complete with drag racing milestones, in-depth video biographies, rare historic footage, and just plain fun on wheels. One title you won't want to miss is And They Walked Away. From 6 seasons of American Sports Cavalcade, Diamond P Video has selected 75 minutes of your favorite breathtaking incidents and combined them into a video that will awe even the most seasoned sports fan. And They Walked Away lets you relive the excitement as fearless competitors from all segments of motorsports push to the edge of disaster in their quest for victory. You'll experience the thrill when suddenly something goes wrong. A spin, a crash, a fire, someone crossing over the edge. Then you'll share the gut-wrenching excitement as help rushes in and you realize that miraculously the competitor has emerged unharmed. All this plus expert commentary by Brock Yates, Paul Page, and me, Steve Evans, make And They Walked Away a must for video entertainment, all for just $24.95. To order your copy of And They Walked Away or to receive a free Diamond P Video catalog, call 1-800-421-0725. From California, call 818-702-9723 or send a check or money order for $24.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to the address shown on your screen. Visa and MasterCard are accepted. CODs are not. Diamond P Video, the leader in motorsports video. Drag Racing 89, a review of all the excitement of the 1989 NHRA Winston Championship season. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and there were 19 races throughout 1989, leading to a payout of nearly $18 million. Working with me is my good pal, Steve Evans.
Thank you very much, Dave. And of course, let's first look at the opening race of the year. The Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals at the LA County Fairplex in Pomona, California. Even though the race was weather delayed for 1 week, 101,000 people enjoyed the action. And this man really got their attention. He showed them the way to set a top speed record at Pomona, California. Connie Coletta, in qualifying, was racing against Frank Cook. On this run, Coletta blistered the quarter mile at 291.54 miles an hour.
You know, the experts all thought it would be Gwen or Amato that would do this. Not so. Connie Coletta, why?
Well, we've been working on the car. You know, we started last fall when we got the high gear set up in the new car. And just everything sort of fell in place, and the fuel system was working right for it. And we put after we get a little more nitro, a little more volume, and it just loves it.
How fast will it go?
God knows.
The grandstands were full when Eddie Hill, in qualifying in the near lane against Harley Langlow, had an incredible ride. The car turned over backwards at the finish line. Hill flew through the air at over 260 miles an hour.
And in replay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why this happened. Watch the front wing on our right. See it neutralize there and all of a sudden tilt up instead of downforce? Well, it became an airplane.
Flying through the air with the greatest of ease, the car was absolutely perpendicular at the finish line. Then it tumbled, gyroing one of the big rear wheels and slicks off the car. It came to earth about a minute later, it seemed. But Eddie Hill rode out this incredible flip and was okay. And immediately, Dave, the conversation between Eddie and his crew turned to, what do we do now? We need to borrow a race car, and that they did. Darrell Gwynn, who was put it not far away, was quick to offer this machine that he had in the rafters of his trailer. Members of other race teams joined with Eddie Hill's crew to work overnight on the car. Percy talked with us.
You can look at this two ways. You can look at it as a tragedy yesterday or as a very joyous occasion. When my husband walked away from a potentially fatal accident, the NHRA has wonderful safety rules. I don't think you can make the cars any safer than they are, and I'm glad that he's going to go back and try it again today.
With his fist in the air, Eddie Hill rolled to the starting line the following morning. No sleep for any member of this crew. The car again borrowed from Darrell Gwynn, the unpainted machine in the near lane, and Eddie Hill qualified it.
Oh, man, I'm so tickled to be here, I can't tell you, but we got good news and bad news. The good news, we got in. The bad news, I don't think we got enough stuff left to make the first round. We kicked another blower off this time. That's 3 engines now this weekend.
The crew again worked diligently on the race car, and Eddie Hill's prediction proved to be true. A cracked cylinder block prevented him from making the first round race. He was out even though he had worked so hard to try to make the race. Just take a look at the lineup of borrowed parts. The most important, of course, one car from Darrell Gwynn. But Eddie Hill, crack block and all, did appear in the starting line alongside Darrell Gwynn, his benefactor, so that the fans saw 2 cars in the starting line, and who knows, maybe Gwynn would have trouble and Hill could just idle down the racetrack. Darrell had no problem whatsoever. He was glued to the ground, took the victory, round number 1, and the exhausted Eddie Hill team headed back to get some sleep. All of the excitement, though, was not concentrated at the Winter Nationals in just Top Fuel Eliminator. Funny car racing had its share. In the near lane was John Force at the wheel of his Oldsmobile, while lined up on the far side of the racetrack was the Pontiac Trans Am-bodied car of Tom Hoover. Hoover won the race, and John Force lost the war. And he lost it big time as he went into the sand trap at the very end of the racetrack, the car flipping over like a turtle, but John was okay.
Great. Boy, that's a E-ticket for you, buddy. Chutes didn't come out. Tore him clear of the roof. I was going to make the curve. I wasn't going to roll her. I thought I could put her in the sand, but she bit. That baby dipped on me, hooked the nose, and what a ride.
Moments later, his next ride was in front of the capacity crowd at the LA County Fairplex. All of his good friends from the local area happy to see that John was A-OK. Well, as always in the wintertime at Pomona, you barely get the finals in, Dave, before it starts. Steve, Mr. Sun was headed over the horizon as our 2 finalists in Pro Stock pulled to the line. It was the Ford of Bob Clinton in the near lane, the Pontiac of Frank Iaconio on the far side of the track. And it was Iaconio off the mark first, but it didn't take the big Ford from the Rockland long to play catch-up. Clint won the Winter Nationals. Great job.
Thank you, Steve. I think the probe came through again. We came in with a new car, and we couldn't be happy. We've got to get this guy in here. Guy Stern, get over here.
It is good to have Frank Iaconio back. He will be an adversary, though.
Not so good for the rest of us, guy. I told Frank just a moment ago, I said, you know, I sincerely mean it. I'm glad to see you here, but I'm not looking forward to racing this guy.
The point standings after the Winter Nationals found Bob Clinton in first. Frank Iaconio was second. Morris Johnson Jr. in third. Warren Johnson fourth. And Don Beverly rounded out the top 5. Then it was time for Top Fuel, the final round, which pit Gary Ormsby up against a very strong Frank Bradley. But Frank Bradley and everyone else in Top Fuel have been talking all weekend long about the science fiction reaction times of the Ormsby's car. That was a topic we would hear a lot of throughout the season. Ormsby was quick, a winning time of 5:06.
Congratulations. Thank you, Steve. I'd like to thank my crew. They're the one that did it. All I do is just push the pedal. Lee, Brian, and Mike, and Chuck, they really did a nice job for me this weekend. Made me look good, didn't they?
In Top Fuel, Ormsby had the points lead coming out of the Winter Nationals with Bradley second. Dennis Forcell a strong showing into third. Frank Hawley was fourth, and Connie Coletta in number 5. And what an interesting funny car final round it was. Bruce Larson, winner of only one previous NHRA national event, up against a four-time and reigning funny car champion, Kenny Bernstein. But Larson's elapsed times had been so strong throughout the event, Dave, that Bernstein knew this wasn't an easy one. Bernstein was in the near lane of the track and immediately went up in smoke. Larson headed to the finish line with an elapsed time of 5:63.
Well, some might call it an upset. Kenny Bernstein defeated in the final round, but by the quickest car of the entire event. You earned this one big time.
How big?
You don't care about the elapsed time in the final 5:60s,
Sure.
but your 5:32s, they were the backbreakers.
It felt great. It felt great all weekend. We were just having trouble with burning the motor down, but it felt good. And, you know, I've got to thank my crew. I got to thank the Amato crew. They helped me out in a lot of pinches. All the good guys, you know, we really needed them.
A great team left Pomona with the points lead. Bruce Larson followed by, of course, Kenny Bernstein. Then Jim White, the new driver of Roland Leong's Hawaiian car. Arizona, Chris Lane, and John Martin. They were the top five coming out of Pomona. Steve, the 9-month-long chase around the country got underway as the NHRA Winston Trail moved to Houston, Texas. The second annual Bram Super Nationals at one of the new super tracks. This only the second event ever run at this facility, the major race. And for the second time, the race was postponed a week. And believe it or not, in Houston, it was because the temperatures were in the zeros, below the teens. You couldn't even start one of these cars. But for Don Prudhomme, the second weekend was a magic one. It certainly was. In qualifying, Don Prudhomme ran the quickest funny car elapsed time ever of 5.19 seconds. The first round race in Top Fuel Eliminator had a bit of intrigue about it. Shirley Muldowney against Lori Johns. The first time the two female drivers had met on Lori's home turf, the state of Texas. Shirley Muldowney was away first. Suddenly she smoked the tire, blew the motor to bits.
I'm so glad things went the way it did. I think we did it exactly right. And I wanted her to be comfortable and not come back and say that I tried to do anything to not make this right. And you know, I just wanted to let her do her deal and have it work out perfectly, and it did.
Well, Shirley Muldowney certainly did her job. She was off the starting line 0.06 of a second ahead of Lori Johns, and then, well, compounded problems.
Yeah, I really don't know. It started to shake just a little bit, and I figured I'd drive it through that, and then it blew the tires off. And I really don't know why we had so much damage here, but we'll get our day.
Thanks, Shirley.
If you sense a rivalry there, well, you have a keen grasp for the obvious. See, that was an interesting study in contrast of emotions between Lori Johns and Shirley Muldowney. Don Prudhomme raced the points leader, Bruce Larson, in the second round of competition. Prudhomme, up in smoke, lost his chance for the record, but Larson set a new national mark at 5:27.
May I introduce to you the new NHRA national record holder for elapsed time.
Wow.
5:27.
Oh, that's great. Thanks a lot for being the guy to tell me.
That's my pleasure. You already had the backup run from qualifying. 200 bonus Winston points. Wow.
Oh, it feels good. We've been having some problems with burning pistons at the end of the runs, and I finally decided to just run it the whole way through.
Certainly, Dave, one of the most outstanding pro stock runs at the Bram Super Nationals was this one. Bob Glidden, Ford Probe in the far lane. Bruce Allen, Chevy Beretta in the near lane. We were on board with Bob Glidden as he set a new national pro stock record, 7.25 seconds. So Glidden advanced to the finals as a pretty frightening opponent, David. Steve, for the second race in a row, the finals were run in near total darkness. Of course, there's lots of lights in Houston, and that certainly helped. As Bob Glidden came to the starting line to race against the man from Virginia, Morris Johnson Jr., driving a Pontiac Trans Am. Well, Glidden did everything right. He left the starting line first. He got to the finish line first at 7.25 seconds, 190 miles per hour. Glidden loves numbers as much as any accountant you've ever met, and you're going to love a 7:25.
That's great, Steve. You know, I thought I had a good run going, and I had enough of a lead. I thought about letting off, but
off, you?
Well, I want the record as low as it can be. You know, it might not be touched for a while.
Glidden with an impressive season start, 2 consecutive wins, led the points chase after Houston. Morris Johnson Jr. second, Larry Morgan third, WJ was in fourth, and Frank Iaconio fifth. Much like Bob Glidden, Bruce Larson went into his second consecutive final round up against Scott Coletta. Now, Coletta had not been running the kind of elapsed times that Larson had during the day, so Coletta was looking to get off of the starting line first if at all possible, and he did it. But Stevie came close to that outside guardrail, drove away from it, and around Larson.
I cannot believe it. He shut it off too early. He had me covered and he shut it off.
He had some big-time engine problems too, though.
Oh, I don't know. Mine was all over the racetrack. I had my hands full, and I knew going into the deal that I was going to have my work cut out. I didn't think I was going to win because I hadn't gone down the track once today.
You got so close to the wall. Did you think about just throwing in the towel?
I can still see where I was.
Your first win.
These guys are going nuts. Houston ain't ready for us tonight. I can't wait.
It will be party time in Houston, I assure you. Well, the first win ever by Scott Coletta moved him second in the points chase after Houston, right behind Larson. Bernstein was third, Oswald fourth, and Art Hendy in number 5. And lo and behold, in the Top Fuel final, the pattern continued. Yet another Winter Nationals champion had made it to the final round. That man, Gary Ormsby, up against the reigning Top Fuel champ, Joe Amato. You talk about Ormsby's reaction times. There's a perfect light in that far lane. And he needed it, Steve, because Joe Amato ran a quicker elapsed time by nearly 600. You have won the Fram Super Nationals 5:09 to a 5:03.
Oh, I love it. I like to win. I don't care how I do it, but it's great.
You're concerned when it appeared to have overstaged?
No, I didn't know it did it?
Well, the staging lights were flickering, yeah.
Oh, were they? No, I didn't even catch that. I just concentrated on the light.
Just a brilliant drive. This car's so consistent in yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you, Steve. It was good to win again.
Like Bob Glidden in Pro Stock, Gary Ormsby won his second race in a row and built up a big lead in the Winston standings. Frank Hawley was second, Amato third, Bradley in fourth, and Connie Coletta fifth. When the smoke had cleared, the game packed up and headed even further south. The Gainesville Raceway, Gainesville, Florida, for the 20th annual Motorcraft Gator Nationals. And what a crowd, Dave McClellan. Certainly was jammed into Gainesville Raceway for the third in 19 events on the 1989 NHRA Winston Championship Trail. One of the most exciting moments came in round number 1 of Top Fuel Eliminator. In the near lane was Shirley Muldowney. In the far lane, the new top speed record holder, Connie Coletta. And this run had a bit of deja vu from Shirley, who wasn't yet over the fire in Houston, and now another one that burned off the parachute even at Gainesville, but she did get the car stopped. For Shirley, this was just one of a series of perplexing engine problems that besieged the entire team during the first part of the season. The fire rather intense. As Shirley continued on down track, Coletta had shut off when he experienced loss of traction, and Shirley won.
It didn't lay down on me or anything. I didn't know I had a problem until I pulled the chutes and they were gone. There, I don't think.
Exactly, and you can see, looking at the back of the chute packs, they are burned off. The tires were a worry as far as I was concerned. They could have burned off.
Yeah, well, I've seen that happen. I think we lost an oil line or something. There's nothing out of the motor. I don't really know what happened, Steve, but we won. That's good enough.
It was fortunate for Shirley that this incident occurred at Gainesville Raceway, one of the longest tracks on the circuit. She had no problem getting stopped even without the parachute. Hers was not the only excitement in Top Fuel Eliminator round number 1. A great race between Dennis Forssell and Joe Amato, with Forssell taking the victory. Another found Hank Endres against Gary Ormsby, the points leader. And in this case, Endres pulled off the upset. How about this upset in round 1 of Funny Car? It is Art Hendy in the near lane defeating Mark Oswald with identical 5:45 elapsed time. In round number 2, it was Bruce Larson facing off with Kenny Bernstein. Larson was the points leader. Kenny Bernstein, of course, trying to accomplish something no other Funny Car driver has ever done: win 5 consecutive Winston titles. It was Bernstein with a very nice starting line advantage, but not enough power. Around him came Bruce Larson at 5:33. 273 miles per hour. The 1989 Gator Nationals saw the return of Mopar of the Chrysler Corporation to Pro Stock racing in fine style. In the near lane was Darrell Alderman driving the Dodge Daytona. Hoffman, the reigning Winston champion, was in the far lane. Alderman had a tremendous advantage at the start, nearly 800ths of a second, and won it.
This has got to be the greatest moment for Dodge fans and Dodge racers in the last 15, 20 years.
And Darrell Alderman, too, because that's the first time I've ever beat him.
What was going on in the starting line? Nobody wanted to stage a little game, maybe?
Well, you know, you make up your mind whether you want to go in first or last, and you got to stick with it.
If both guys want to be last, that's what happens.
That's when Buster comes in, and he can make it hard on you.
Well, you did indeed leave on him by a few hundredths of a second. Identical 738s. What a job.
Thank you.
With a smile on his face, Darrell Alderman went into the final round against Frank Iaconio. This time, Alderman was in the far side of the track, switching lanes from his semifinal victory run over Bob Glidden. But the outcome against Iaconio was the same as Alderman won his first ever NHRA National Event Pro Stock title.
And that tightened up the points a bit. Frank Iaconio sneaking up on Glidden. Morris Johnson Jr. was in the third position. Bruce Allen, Warren Johnson rounded out the top 5 after Gainesville.
The final in funny car eliminator. Again, Bruce Larson in the final round. He's over in the far lane. Ed McCulloch in the near lane. This was one of those races folks will talk about for years to come. McCulloch went instantly up in smoke. Larson went across the center line. His crew reacted, and obviously he lost the race by crossing the center line.
Anytime I'd rather be lucky than good. But
Did you see him cross the line?
yeah, I did. You know, we gambled. The thing was, you know, if it had hung on, it would have flew, but it didn't do it. It smoked the tires. You know, Bruce and their crew, they ran extremely well all weekend, but
You will take the money and the points.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to let them have it.
The point standing still saw Bruce Larson in the lead. McCulloch had crept into second. Kenny Bernstein in third. After Gainesville, Art Hendy was fourth, and Mark Oswald, number 5. For the Top Fuel final, the fans were really divided. This young man who makes his home in Miami up against the man in the far lane from Wichita Falls, Texas, Eddie Hill, back after the disastrous crash at Pomona. Hill had the lead. Gwen came around him to win it, 5:08 to a 5:11.
When you needed it, you had it, Darrell. 5:08 to 80.
I appreciate that. I tell you what, we gambled like unbelievable in the final. We changed everything but the left front wheel there. You know, I tell you what, it paid off. We knew Eddie was going to be right there, and I knew I had to cut a good light, and right in front of my hometown, I can't believe it, 5:08.
You've been so close here before.
That's right, and Eddie's beat me in Texas in front of his hometown, so I paid him back a little bit.
Losing in the first round hurt Gary Ormsby a bit, not to mention Joe Amato, who slipped at third with Darrell Gwynn sandwiched in between them. The next race on the NHRA Winston Trail, number 4 in this 9-month-long season, moves to the new Atlanta Dragway just north of Atlanta, Georgia, near the town of Commerce, for the 9th annual running of the AC Delco Southern Nationals. And once again, Steve, a huge crowd was on hand. And lots of warm southern sunshine, David. You know, a lot of the fans, in fact, yours truly, we were rubbing our eyes because we thought we were seeing things. Maybe we'd gone over the bend, because at Sheridan Muldowney's camp, there was Big Daddy Don Garlitz, and they weren't shouting at each other. I don't understand. Garlitz had signed on as an advisor to try to help the Muldowney team find their problems. In Pro Stock Eliminator, in a qualifying effort, Frank Sanchez was in the near lane. Butch Leal was in the far lane. Sanchez, as he crossed the finish line, lost control, went on his roof in front of Butch Leal, who had to make a left turn into the guardrail.
I pulled the chute out, and the chute came out, and I looked up, and Frank was right beside me, and I noticed the chute didn't come out, and the next thing I know, looked like he hit the brakes to me, and sort of got it sideways, and the wind caught it, and next thing I know, it's upside down right in front of me, and I got to get in the left lane, and I tagged the guardrail and destroyed my car.
Stevie might have destroyed a whole lot more if he had continued on straight ahead right into the spinning Frank Sanchez.
And that wasn't the last of the Pro Stock dashing would see. Watch James Antoinette in the near lane, Chuck Edmillion in the far lane. Whoa, upside down and across the racetrack. Fortunately, David, it was not a two-car incident like the one with Butch Leal.
And most fortunately, Steve, the fire presented no problem. Antoinette unhurt.
The car just went towards the center. I corrected it. I felt it was going to go straight, and all of a sudden, these cars are fast. That's the only thing I can say, and things happen so quick. You know, it's my first national event, and I had some practice with the car, but I guess I didn't have enough.
Steve, now there's a man that admits his own frailties. You have to admire that kind of honesty in a person. All right, in the Pro Stock semifinals, this was the race. Larry Morgan in the Oldsmobile in the far lane, and who else? The red and white probe of Bob Glidden in the near lane.
A staging battle went on here at Atlanta as Buster Couch came forward and backed the two cars off the starting line.
Buster was taking no prisoners on this day. Now, we watched him go over and have a conversation with both drivers. We were sure at the time he was berating them. Actually, Buster was saying, "You boys okay? It's a warm day. It's an air conditioning. Just having a little fun with them," but letting them know that he's the boss on the starting line. When the two came together again, it was Glidden by a headlight.
Well, that was just one of the moments that took place at the Southern Nationals at Atlanta, Georgia. For Bob Glidden, another moment took place when he came to the starting line to race against Bruce Allen, driving the Chevrolet out of Arlington, Texas. The Beretta in the near lane got a tremendous starting line advantage, nearly 400ths of a second. Then as they got close to the finish line again, the probe the winner.
70 of them.
Hey, I'd take 70 more, Steve. I'm telling you. You know,
that'll scare the rest of the guys.
No, hey, you know, we've never had it so good. These are the good old days for us.
Oh, boy. Well put.
The point standings at the end of Atlanta found Glidden in the lead. Allen was second, Frank Iaconio third, Morgan moved to fourth, and Warren Johnson fifth.
In the funny car final, the man of the Joe Paisano-owned car, Mike Dunn, found a new adversary alongside him. Eric Reed, Riverside, California, in only his second season of professional funny car racing, making his first ever final round. And what a drive he had off the starting line. He just drilled Mike Dunn, but then went into a wheel stand, unloaded the rear tires. Mike Dunn won it at 5.60.
Well, Mike, for a bunch of guys who claim not to be full-time touring pros and just do this for a giggle, you sure win a lot of races. Great job.
Great. That's nice. You know, we are just part-time racers, but maybe if we can talk Papa Joe into run a few more races, because I think we've got a pretty good combination here.
Papa Joe, Joe Paisano, the car owner. Bruce Larson, after the Southern Nationals, continued on top of the points heap in funny car. Nobody really closing in on him.
Steve, the finals in Top Fuel found the 1987 Winston champion, Dick LaHaye, on the far side of the track, lined up against the man in his second final round appearance of 1989, second in a row, Eddie Hill. And just like Gainesville, the result's the same. Hill lost, LaHaye the winner.
We could hear Dick LaHaye hooting and hollering in the car 100 yards before it got here.
Boy, Steve, it seems like it's been forever since we've talked in the final round and I've won the race, is what it amounts to. I mean, I'm just so thrilled. I'm just glad that I'm here for Millie.
Well, I'm glad you're here for all of us, but the 12th one didn't come easy, so it'll be long remembered.
No, it didn't, boy. I mean, there's going to be some more this year.
By the way, a 5:13, nice way to end it all.
Yeah, it's the best one.
After Atlanta, the point standings in the Winston Chase for Top Fuel Eliminator found Ormsby continuing to lead. Gwynn in second. Eddie Hill had moved up into third, LaHaye into fourth, and Joe Amato had dropped to number 5.
Then it was the relatively short tow to Memphis, Tennessee in the second annual AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals at this beautiful multi-purpose racetrack. Again, a turn-away crowd, brilliant sunshine, and in case anybody thought that maybe Kenny Bernstein was an easy target, well, this reminded him that isn't so.
Bernstein also proved the quality of this racing surface when he went down the quarter mile and broke the record at a 5:25.
When you're struggling to win an unprecedented 5th Winston title, every point you can earn is badly needed. And Kenny, you just may have picked up an extra 200, a brand new national record, 5:25.
Well, I sure hope so. We sure can use it. It doesn't hurt. Like you said, it's going to be a tough year with these guys running as good as they do. So it takes everything we can do. But Dale and the crew just did a phenomenal job.
Steve, while Kenny established a new performance standard in Memphis, he did not meet it in the final round against Mark Oswald. No, he didn't, as Oswald became the first driver to ever get a shower of nitromethane. How would you feel bolted into that car when nobody but you knows that this highly volatile liquid is spraying all over the place? Kenny Bernstein took a high run. And for Kenny, it's a good thing there was no enemy in the near lane because he blazed the tires.
Bruce Larson had the points lead after Memphis. Bernstein second, McCulloch in third, Oswald stayed fourth, and Art Hendy in the number 5 position.
In the Pro Stock final round, the two arch rivals came together. Warren Johnson for Oldsmobile. Johnson slowly throughout the season gaining more and more performance and improving his reaction times. Bob Glidden in the near lane. They left right together. They stayed together until the top end when Glidden's horsepower took over and he won it 728 to a losing 737.
His 71st victory.
Yeah, you know, that's a great victory. More so than being the 71st victory, the fact that we ran Bruce the first round. Bruce was second in the Winston points. Everyone who was right up there except Warren went out early. So we've got at least at this point, a fairly good lead in the Winston chase.
In fact, the best lead early in the season that Bob Glidden had ever enjoyed. Look at the difference between Glidden and the second place points earner, Warren Johnson. Wow, what a deficit.
For the third Top Fuel final in a row, Eddie Hill was racing for a championship. For the third consecutive race, Eddie Hill ran into problems. This time, it was Gary Ormsby. Hill fell victim to the loss of traction while Ormsby streaked across the finish line with a 5:03.
3 out of the first 5 races now belong to Gary Ormsby. Unbelievable.
Well, thank you, Steve. I have to give credit to my crew. You know, the knowledge I've got of running one of these cars you could put in a thimble. So these guys have done it for me again, and it's all what can I say?
Gary Ormsby, the leader, with Eddie Hill staying in second. Darrell Gwynn, third. LaHaye, followed by Amato.
Up next, one of everybody's favorite events on the trail. Well, partially the food, oysters and crawfish and jambalaya. All that good hot Cajun cuisine, the 14th annual Citgo Cajun National.
Steve, the hot cooking was matched by the warm weather, the hot qualifying, and this huge crowd that had jammed into State Capitol Dragway outside of Baton Rouge for this 14th annual event. R.C. Sherman provided a great deal of the excitement in qualifying. He was in the near lane.
Watch R.C. Sherman as he loses traction. What you're about to see is one of the most vile and funny car crashes we have ever witnessed, and incredibly enough, the driver was only shaken up.
Steve, I think this is a tribute to the safety requirements as you saw R.C. Sherman beginning to take his helmet off under his own power. The car slammed into the guardrail with such tremendous force, it ripped the front end off the car. The fuel tank shattered. It sent a ball of flame headed skyward, and R.C. Sherman, inside the cockpit, just rode it out.
That car came across the racetrack under full throttle. The throttle obviously had stuck, and look at what this man goes through.
Tumbling down the racetrack, R.C. Sherman had no control over this car. It finally rolled to a stop under its own accord. Sherman was checked out and was pronounced fit and back at the track the next day.
Pro Stock round number 1. We were on board with Bob Glidden as he raced Kenny Koretsky. We see Glidden pulling those Lenco handles, getting it into high gear, but out in front of him is Kenny Koretsky, who took a gamble on the starting line.
Well, here's a young man who has been struggling to make it as a Pro Stock racer. You've never been cocky before, but this morning you were saying, I'm going to beat Glidden, I'm going to beat him, and you did.
Well, I had nothing to lose and everything to gain, and just went for it to tree. The car shook, and just drove it on through.
An 1100s hole shot. Great job.
Good deal. Thanks a lot.
Steve, the perspiration on Kenny Koretsky's brow showing this was just a typical South Louisiana Sunday. He was perspiring a bit too as Bruce Allen, the car in the near lane in the finals against Butch Leal, put him away in earlier rounds of competition. Allen won it a 7:45.
From the very beginning of the day, when we first talked to Bruce Allen, you could kind of see the Cajun Nationals logo in your eyes. This was your race.
You believe it? I'm happy. That's great.
Lots of power.
Yeah, Buddy and Dave done wonders with the car today. You could tell for the first 2 runs we weren't doing too good, and they got the car working good. I can't say enough about them.
While Glidden may have lost in the first round, he still had a commanding lead after Baton Rouge. Allen was second, Morgan, Johnson, and Alderman rounding out the top 5.
Interesting funny car final round at the Cajuns. There was no Bernstein. There was no Larson, there was no McCullough, there was no Oswald, but there was this man, the independent racer from San Dimas, California, John Martin, up against a rather independent team itself. That is Mike Dunn driving for Joe Paisano. Dunn in the near lane got the advantage at the starting line, and Papa Joe celebrated along with the rest of the crew. Mike Dunn winning his second race of the season. That did not put him in the top 5. The list was still headed by Bruce Larson with Bernstein second. And Bernstein closing a bit on Larson. The Top Fuel final round. This was really interesting. Frank Hawley, a former 2-time funny car champion, in his first ever Top Fuel final round, driving for Larry Minor, the team out of San Jacinto, California. And they were up against Gene Snow with some sudden consistency, but all of a sudden, you saw the crewman throw his hands in the air. There was something wrong with Hawley's car. And it was a situation where Snow pulled into the staging beams, and so did Hawley. But Hawley's car was disabled before the 3 ever went green. Snow went across the finish line, the winner.
Gene Snow is well known in this sport as an innovator. Translate that into tinkerer. If he runs 5:16, he wants to run 3:16. The crew handcuffed him in the trailer. Don't change a thing, right? It paid off.
I have been known to change a few things, but this baby was giving me such good runs and stuff that I couldn't resist. We left it alone.
Tell me about the run itself. By the way, it duplicated 5:16.
Did it really? 5:16, that's really, really good. The guys worked real hard. Chris Eckert, my crew chief, as you guys all know, has done a real good job keeping it consistent. Our sponsors, and everything's worked out real good. This boy didn't think he could win one. Here it is. We've done it.
As the show hit the road again after Baton Rouge, Ormsby first, Wynn second, LaHaye third, Hill fourth. Amato out of the top 5. Hawley was in. And the tour moved from the state capital of Louisiana to the state capital of Ohio. National Trail Raceway near Columbus, the 25th annual Budweiser Spring Nationals. Do I have to say it? Again, a capacity crowd. The Sunday attendance alone was 47,000, and the weather continued to be delightful after those first 2 rained-out, frozen-out races. Steve Gary Ormsby in the far lane in qualifying provided a lot of excitement. His first ever 4 of 499.
Meet the newest member of the 4-Second Club, Gary Ormsby, 499.
Thank you, Steve. We knew if it was going to do it, it was going to do it right there.
You and I had dinner last night. You said we're in the first pair in qualifying. It'll be cool. Maybe we can run a 4, and here it is.
Yeah, we put everything we thought it'd take to do it, and it had the front end up, and it was marching right out of the gate, so I was pretty sure it was close. If that wasn't it, it had to be real close.
It was in qualifying that Joe Amato thrilled the overflow crowd. As he left the starting line, he left it on fire. Oh, yeah, this was just a rolling blowtorch. Amato at this point probably started to feel the fire being fed by the oil in his engine and finally shut it off. Keep an eye on that car in the far lane. That was Tony McCollum against Jim White, and that was a supercharger explosion. As McCollum went on down track, the car continued to shed parts and pieces and fiberglass.
Well, Tony, I know to all of us it was a great relief when you say you get out of that car unhurt.
Yeah, well, she banged one, but it didn't seem all that violent inside of the car. Just a bunch of tin in my face. Outside that, she was normal.
That's about the most body damage I've ever seen in a funny car from what you say was a rather simple blower explosion. That body is ruined.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it kind of hurts me because as I'm trying to get more confident with the car, it's the second time she blew up in my face, and I'm kind of get fed up with it now.
Well, Tony may have been a little bit fed up with it, but at least he was right side up. That's more than you can say for Grady Bryant.
This was the alcohol car from Texas. Is it going to go over? Yes! We give it a 8.7 for Grady Bryant.
The degree of difficulty on that exceeds our calculations, Steve.
But the sand trap did its job perfectly. And Grady Bryant was unhurt.
Well, I'm happy to report that this man, Grady Bryant, after a few minutes in the back of the ambulance, the little birdies all kind of went away and you're feeling good.
I got the cobwebs cleared away. I just kind of depressed, got my feelings hurt. Here we are, 4th in the nation, leading the division, and had a problem like this, but that's racing, Steve.
The semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator at Columbus found Joe Amato, the reigning Winston champ, against the points leader, Gary Ormsby.
And everybody was saying Ormsby's car never smokes the tires. He's always first off the mark. He was second off the mark, and he smoked the tire. Joe Amato thundered to a 5:23 victory.
Well, against Joe Amato, the car that supposedly never smokes the tires and always leaves first, What is this, yoga?
This is yoga. I said I was going to stand on my head when I beat Ornsby in that green car, and now he's down, buddy.
Steve, I thought the silly season started at the end of the year. With Amato, you never can tell. Bob Glidden, now there's a man who I've never seen silly. However, his opponent, Joe LaPone Jr., can get a little wacko. In fact, he's the only pro stock car with a horn on it. He'll honk it down the racetrack, honk it at the starter, has a great time, and he's a great driver. Steve, so much for your description. He just red-lighted. But he had no choice. He had to take a shot on this day against Bob Glidden. Look at the ET. Glidden went with a 741 to LaPone 749. Great drivers risk once in a while, you know. Glidden maintained his points lead and extended it over Bruce Allen after Columbus, WJ in third, Larry Morgan fourth, and Alderman stayed in number 5. The funny car final round found who else but Bruce Larson, the points leader in the far lane, up against a contender here, Tom Hoover out of Maple Grove, Minnesota. His 82-year-old father builds all the engines for the Showtime car in the near lane. Hoover felt he was due to win one. He left first, but couldn't match the awesome power of Larson, who went at 542 to Hoover's tire smoking 679. That extended Larson's points lead after Columbus with Bernstein second, McCulloch third, Oswald fourth, and Mike Dunn, the number 5 car in the Winston standing. The top duel final round. Hank Indris in his first ever NHRA final round appearance up against Joe Amato. I guarantee you, on this day, had Hank Indris beat Joe Amato, he'd have done a lot more than stand on his head. But as you'll see in just moments here, Amato was not to be denied, even though he too gave up a bit of a hole shot at the starting line. An incredible 5-12 for Amato and the Columbus Championship.
It is bedlam down here, Dave, as you can see. The first doubleheader for the Amato back team. Bruce Larson in funny car, Joe Amato in top field. I don't know if he's ever going to take his helmet off. Maybe he'll stand on his head again for us. I don't know. Joe Amato with a wonderful 5:12 elapsed time in the final round. Just what it takes to win it without smoking the tires. I'll tell you, it has been really crazy down here, everyone, but a whole lot of fun. Joe Amato frustrated. Seems to have had that Winston Championship jinx, but I think you've broken out of it now, champ.
Yeah, monkey buddy, boom, he's gone. We're back.
5:12.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Boy, my guys have been working hard all year. You know, World Championship, you get that monkey on your back. And it takes a lot of teamwork, and you got to stick to it. You got to keep smiling when the chips are down. That's why we got a good team, and I love to come back from something. When you're adverse, that's a sign of a true champion, when you can come back and do it.
He certainly came back into the top 5, now number 4 after Columbus. Amato headed by LaHaye in third, Gwynn second, and Ormsby number 1. Now it was time for everybody to go practice their French. The only time the NHRA Winston Tour heads north of the border is for the Le Grand National Molson, the 19th annual edition in 1989. How was my French, man? Sounds good to me. I'll take 2 of them with some coffee on the side, please.
All right, the excitement started in round number 2. Well, the excitement started in qualifying, but in round number 2, take a look at this beauty between Laurie Johns in the far lane, Darrell Gwynn in the near lane. Gwynn thinks he's gonna beat the young lady from Corpus Christi, and then kaboom!
Gwynn had no problems in getting the car stopped, but Laurie Johns took a very strong victory with an elapsed time of a 5:22 at over 272 miles an hour.
Well, all of Darrell Gwynn's problems were at the finish line. For points leader in funny car Bruce Larson in the near lane, all of his problems were at the starting line. Buster Couch says, shut it up, it's leaking. Maynard yanks the crew chief, throws down the racket to Scott. Don Perdome gets the break of the day. He even smoked the tires, but he had a single. He's so tough to be here, it's unbelievable.
Round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. It was Iaconio over in the far lane. We took a ride with Bob Glidden in his Ford Pro.
And Glidden continued to hammer the gears, even though back at the starting line, Glidden had left a foul start. Frank Iaconio advanced to the semifinals. Steve Frank was successful in his semifinal round of competition. That brought him into the finals, where he raced against the Chevrolet Beretta of Bruce Allen. Allen got a very slight advantage at the starting line, and when you couple that with his 7:37 elapsed time, he came home the Grand Nationals champ.
Bob Glidden has predicted all year long. He said, don't count that guy Bruce Allen out. He's a comer. He's going to get it.
We've been working real hard, and we've been staying after it, and it doesn't always show, but when it does pay off, it makes you feel like you just need to go work a little bit harder. And I think we're closing in on Bob a little bit, and I just hope we keep it up.
After the 8th race of the 19-event season, Bob Glidden had over a 1,700-point lead over Bruce Allen. Frank Iaconio was in 3rd, W.J. 4th, and Morgan down to 5th.
The juggernaut that was the Ormsby team could not be kept out of the final round at Saint-Air. It was Ormsby up against LaHaye, the rest of the competition hoping that somehow LaHaye could stop the point gathering of Gary Ormsby. But that proved to be impossible when LaHaye lost traction. Ormsby won it at 5.15 seconds. With 8 races down, Ormsby had won 4 of them. Dick LaHaye in second, Darrell Gwynn hanging on to the 3rd spot. Amato slowly slipping backwards.
The final round of Funny Car Eliminator up in Canada saw the battle of the big red cars unfold once again. Kenny Bernstein was in the near lane. On the far side of the racetrack was Mark Oswald in the Candies and Hughes pro-bodied car.
Oswald got just a little bit out of the groove and it costing Bernstein by 3/4 of a car, a 5:51 to a 5:54, the race of the day. And when the points were posted, Bernstein had to be encouraged. He was slowly but surely nibbling away at Larson's points lead. Don Prudhomme making his first appearance in the top 4.
Traditionally, July, Englishtown, New Jersey, it means the midpoint of the season, and that was the case for 1989. Numerically, it may not be exactly on the halfway point, race number 9 of the 19-event season, but the 20th annual running of the Budweiser Summer Nationals, again, a jam-packed crowd, and Don Prudhomme in round number 2 of Funny Car Racing against Tony McCollum.
Prudhomme was driving for his 300th individual round victory, and he just did get it.
The Summer Nationals title is still 3 win lights away, but Don Prudhomme, congratulations on your 300th NHRA round victory.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that was the number. It's been a long time, but I'm still having fun doing it.
While Prudhomme was winning his 300th victory in the second round at Englishtown, Don Gay Jr. won his second ever when Mark Oswald had problems, could not stop after the burnout, giving the win automatically to the second-generation driver.
Don Gay Jr., this has got to be a dream come true for a 20-year-old.
It sure is. I'm racing the guys I always admired all my life, and we're getting past them, and I can't believe it.
Those first few runs, all that horsepower, a little scary?
Not as much as I thought it was going to be. It came, of course, it's always in the beginning, but it came pretty natural.
When you live by the sword, you die by the sword in pro stock racing. In round number 1, Butch Leal in the far lane put a big hole shot on Bob Glidden and won the race with a slower time. Then trying the same thing against Joe Lapone in round number 2, he lost to the red light back at the starting line.
But when it came time for the final round, Joe Lapone was nowhere to be seen because the man in the far lane, that blue and white car, that driver, Don Beverly, had put him away. Beverly, a one-time national event winner from Virginia, up against multi-time winner Bruce Allen in the Rare Morrison car, and it was a pretty darn good final round. In fact, it wasn't settled until the traps themselves. Bruce Allen.
Been a good day. If you wrote a script for today, this is what it would have been.
That's right. Get Glidden out early for points reasons.
Yeah. Everybody that was even close to us, unfortunately for them, there's a bunch of tough competitors, and it's not just a Bob Glidden show out here. There's a bunch of real tough guys out here.
Well, everybody agreed with that. Bruce Allen inching up on Glidden, 1,000 points over, still separated them at the almost midway point.
The final round of Funny Car Eliminator saw the reigning Winston champ Kenny Bernstein on the far side of the racetrack against Ed McCulloch. And this, like the Pro Stock Final, was another great race that was not decided until the finish line.
You never know, McCulloch had left first. That's how quickly Bernstein covered him up with a 5:41 to McCulloch's losing 5:50.
After the Summer Nationals, the point standings very close, virtually a tie. Bruce Larson only 66 points ahead of Kenny Bernstein. Far back in third was Oswald.
And in top fuel, the final round pitted this man, Dick LaHaye, who had played in pain all day long. He had re-injured a rib, coupled with some back problems. Gary Ormsby thought maybe he was in the driver's seat for his 5th victory of the year, but no, LaHaye was up to the task.
The
did you do on that starting line to try to take your mind off the pain and the pain you knew you would endure when the parachute hit?
Once the motor starts, you can't think about it. All I can think about is winning the race. And I just thank the Lord that I was able to do it. I mean, it worked out.
Ormsby's final round appearance kept him well ahead of LaHaye, who now was in second with Gwynn in third, Amato fourth, Hill fifth, after the ninth race of the 1989 season.
Well, the star in many ways of the 11th annual Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals in Morrison, Colorado, just outside Denver, was the facility itself. After a year's absence on the NHRA Winston schedule, Denver was back. And take a look at what greeted us. We were shocked, David, at this facility.
John Vandermeer and his family that owned Vandermeer Speedway invested over $3 million in a total rebuilding, refurbishment of this racetrack. A new concrete retaining wall, concrete starting line pads, huge grandstands going up the side of the mountain, and of course, that magnificent operations and hospitality tower.
Well, here was a race that was not so magnificent. Don Gay in the near lane loses control of his funny car, qualifying against Don Prudhomme, appears to have just grazed the wall. We had no way of knowing at this point in time, as he chugged up the hill, he was unconscious inside the automobile. The fire started to burn. He came across the track, just kind of nudged the other wall. Everybody's saying the safety safari is on their way. But boy, this one just got worse and worse.
Inside that inferno, Don Gay Jr. was just along for the ride, unconscious, the car chugging its way up the hill in the shutdown area. Then, as the safety safari pulled close, the fire bottles overheated, exploded.
Yes, David, I was standing right behind the cameraman who took this shot, and I'll tell you, I have never been so afraid for a man's life as I was Don Gay Jr.'s.
The impact with the concrete retaining wall did not appear to be that severe. But looking back at the accident, that blow sent Gay's head into the roll cage. That was the blow that knocked him unconscious and put him totally at the mercy of what happened in the ensuing explosion.
You remember we said he was qualifying alongside Don Prudhomme? Well, one of the first people to the scene of this, as you called it, an inferno, and that adjective fits, was the Snake himself, because he was dressed for duty, much like Jerry Grice on the NHRA Safety Safari. Another suited-up driver may have saved his life.
A quick ride to the hospital in the Flight for Life helicopter, and Don Gay Jr. began the recuperative process.
One of the most interesting races in round number 2 pitted John Force against Mark Oswald. Interesting because for the first time, we all rode along with a funny car driver looking right at the suited-up head of John Force. And there goes the parachute, but unfortunately for John, it was a losing effort. His 570 could not match wheels with Mark Oswald's 564.
The final round of Pro Stock at Denver found the big red and white Ford on the starting line once again. Bob Glidden with this time his opponent, Jerry Ekman, at the wheel of the Pontiac. As we did with John Force in his funny car, we rode along with Bob Glidden. Outside the driver's window, you see the view that Bob Glidden had as he pulled ahead of Jerry Ekman, taking the victory and extended even further his points lead in the Winston Championship. Allen remained second with Frank Iaconio in third.
After the Summer Nationals, there were some who were saying, well, maybe Bruce Larson didn't have the depth after he had some bad luck there. Bernstein almost tying him in the points. Well, Mark Oswald in Denver would not have agreed with that because there was Bruce Larson right alongside him. And Larson's team, just before they came to the starting line, here's the pictures, changed a very important jet in the fuel system. They were watching the racing ahead of them, and they thought, we're going to make a change here. And we were all anxious to find out if it would pay off. Also, a lot of people have been saying Larson can't get off the starting line first. His reaction times are awful. Not in Denver, they weren't. It was Larson with a huge hole shot, and Larson winning with a 566 over Oswald, losing it quicker, 562. Bruce Larson proved on this day that that team was no fluke. Bernstein dropping back in the points once again. Oswald, McCullough, Don Prudhomme rounding out the top 5.
At the Mile High Nationals in Denver, the number 1 and number 3 cars in Top Fuel Winston point standings met in the final round. The leader, Gary Ormsby,
The car that had been moved down to the number 3 spot, Joe Amato, that by virtue of Dick LaHaye's win just a couple of weeks earlier at Englishtown. But Amato was not to be denied at Denver. His elapsed time, 5.21 seconds. His speed over 266 miles an hour. Amato celebrated the second double victory for his team, as Larson had already won Funny Car. Ormsby continued the leader in the Winston chase, followed by LaHaye, Amato, Gwynn, and Hill.
Well, after our Rocky Mountain High in Denver, it was time to do some California Dreamin', the second annual Motorcraft Ford California Nationals, the second race on this Western Tour. And those that were at Sears Point International Raceway near Sonoma, California, will never forget this event. And we're about to show you some of the reasons why. It was just incredible.
There were lots of people on hand at Sears Point International Raceway. This multi-purpose facility, generally a road course, had folks up on the hillside watching as Gene Snow exploded a tire. The car slammed into the guardrail, the concrete retaining wall, knocking out Gene Snow, much as we saw up in Denver when Don Gay Jr. hit the concrete. Snow's car continued down track until it slammed to a stop against a telephone pole.
Gene Snow ultimately suffering a fractured shoulder. In replay, watch the front of the car. You'll see a little weight bar come off the axle, puncture the fuel tank, and then destroy the left rear tire. Gene Snow doing everything he can do right now to give it hard left rudder, but with a solid axle, it's driving the car to the right and into the wall where, as you said earlier, Matt, it knocked him unconscious.
From this angle, it was obvious as you saw Snow's head slam into the upright of that roll cage. Then, with Snow unconscious, the car had a mind of its own, and it decided it wanted to go off track once it had run out of the concrete barricade. The tire wall around that pole helped absorb some of the impact as the car came to a very abrupt halt.
Well, Gene Snow made a full recovery and rejoined the Tour a few races later. Now watch this funny car qualifying. Gary Ritter versus Mark Seaver. Seaver out of control, hits the wall. Ritter is on fire. The fire appears to go out. Then it relights. And it seems like it takes forever for Ritter to get this car stopped. Possibly the fire had boiled all the brake fluid. And you know that inside that car, Gary Ritter is holding his breath. Open came the emergency hatch, and out the top would come Gary Ritter. The big difference between this and, let's say, the Don Gay Jr. fire, David, there was no fire inside the car.
And Gary Ritter was conscious throughout this whole time and the master of his own destiny.
Had there been any injury here, it would have come at this point when Gary Ritter tried to vault the wall. He was just fine.
I would say that's about a 2.5 on our judging scale, Steve. But seriously, Ritter was okay with no problems at all. So was Sievers after his impact with the guardrail. When that fire relit, Steve, it was very intense as Ritter was just hanging on as the car continued down track. This was a rather unique vehicle. David Benjamin built the car, plus he designed and built a special set of cylinder heads that was on this vehicle at the time of the fire.
Well, the most appropriate word you just used, Dave, this was a very unique vehicle because there wasn't much left of it after the inferno. And you know, the entire California Nationals, it seemed like the devil was running this race. Watching top fuel qualifying in the near lane. Dennis Porcel against Joe Amato. Porcel, awful explosion. Part of the shrapnel explodes the left rear tire, and he does some driving that any Outlaws Sprint car driver would be proud of.
Steve, that was just a matter of inches. That's how close Dennis Porcel came to striking the left rear on Joe Amato's car. As you saw, the engine exploded. That cost Porcel that left rear tire. And like Snow, the car continued to pull towards the right. Porcel had to really crank in some left-hand steering, trying to get the car to head. Look at that. The rear tire absolutely stopped. He's got the brake locked on that vehicle.
Well, thank God Joe Amato didn't lock up his brakes. Now you say, that's got to be it, right, Stephen Dave?
Wrong, sport fans. Watch Amato in the near lane later on in this event.
Another tremendous engine explosion. Fire forward of his helmet.
This time, look at the fire coming up through the cockpit. Joe Amato just rode this one out until the car came to a stop. Then he was quick to exit the vehicle.
Amato out on the ground. Not sure at this point whether he was on fire or not. The safety safari cooling him down. Look at the helmet that Amato had on. The paint blistered. The paint was blistered. His fire suit was ruined. But here was something at the far end we haven't seen for a very long time. The crankshaft fell completely out of the bottom of the engine and was just abandoned down there where we do the interviews. Back in the bed area, the crew went through an incredible between rounds experience. Along with the help of a number of other teams, they put a brand new engine and completely rewired that car to get it ready for the next round of racing. A lot of things could not be fixed. For example, their onboard information gathering device, the computer. It was non-existent here. Tim Richards had to go back by tuning them, by looking at the fuel. Well, there were no spark plugs left to tune from in that other motor. This was a virgin effort. Here in round number 2, Joe Amato raced against Eddie Hill. And the value of Tim Richards and all the work paid off of 5:06 at 2:82. Just about the time the overflow crowd said, "I've seen it all," Jerry Ormsby came to the starting line against Jim Head. Watch the wing on Ormsby's car. It leaves the vehicle. The car unloads. Ormsby can do nothing but just sit low and hang on as the car slides upside down to a stop, almost grinding the chrome moly roll cage off the rest of the chassis. As Ormsby awaited the arrival of the safety safari team, which was there in seconds, Ormsby unbuckled his safety harness, but waited until the car was upright before he got out to be checked over by the safety crew and pronounced A-OK. But the race car totally destroyed, and also Ormsby's hopes of earning any more points in California. That opened the door for other drivers, such as Dick LaHaye and his encounter with Gordy Bonnet. Bonnet back out of retirement, but on the burnout, LaHaye's engine lets go. He pulls to the side, and the Canadian has a bye run. For LaHaye, what a disappointment the California Nationals was. He had a chance to make a big move in the point standings, but saw it go for naught with that exploded engine. The final round of pro stock racing, once again, it was the Ford versus Oldsmobile battle of Warren Johnson against Bob Glidden. And David, this was a war of good old-fashioned horsepower. They left right together. The Oldsmobile in the far lane was not a match with a big shotgun Hemi Ford on this day. Glidden won it at 7:33, 188 miles per hour, and the traditional high five from the Glidden boys. Bruce Allen just kind of watches Glidden drive away in the points. Warren Johnson, he enjoys moving up a bit and trying to get some of that Winston bonus cash at season 10. Mark Oswald and Don Prudhomme matched their skills at the starting line and across the racetrack as they met in the final round of Funny Car Eliminator at the California Nationals. And it was a rematch of the year before when Oswald won. Oswald had a big advantage off the starting line, but look at what Prudhomme did. A 5:32 beat Oswald's 5:36. Bruce Larson continued his lead in the Winston point standings with Kenny Bernstein less than 700 points behind. Mark Oswald was in third. The finals of Top Fuel, Joe Amato had repaired all the necessary things to at least get the car run and make that semifinal round victory to earn the right to race against Frank Bradley, who had just gotten married. And that was the new Mrs. Bradley, Maggie, you just saw. The crowd here, of course, has been rooting for Frank Bradley all of their lives, and they really came apart when Joe Amato's engine came apart. This one was over before they ever staged. And Maggie Bradley knew it, as did Frank Bradley, receiving congratulations from Buster Couch. Joe Amato was standing on the guardrail. He had gotten out of his stalled vehicle. He gave a round of applause to Bradley, who celebrated his wedding in fine style, taking home the title.
Wouldn't you call this the race of your career today, this whole weekend?
Probably. Right in my backyard, married. Everything went smooth. Yeah.
The point standings continued. Ormsby in number 1, LaHaye second. Amato moved into third with Darrell Gwynn dropping to fourth, and Eddie Hill was fifth. The battered remains of what was NHRA Winston Championship drag racing after Sears Point headed up the coast to Seattle International Raceway in Kent, Washington for the second annual Performance Corner Seafair Nationals in the shadow of Mount Rainier. Steve, this is one of the most incredible vistas of any racetrack in the world, and an overflow crowd jammed into Seattle to watch in the semifinal round that classic Ford versus Chevy battle. Bruce Allen in the near lane against Bob Glidden, the points leader in the Winston standing.
And all along, all through the season, Glidden has been saying, don't think this is a waltz for me. There's a tough guy named Bruce Allen, and he proved to be a prophet. In the semifinals, it was Bruce Allen, 737 to a 742.
The win in the semis moved Bruce into the final round where, for the second race in a row, just a week earlier, Warren Johnson had lost his opportunity to take home a title down at California Nationals at Sears Point. Allen was in the near lane, Johnson in the far lane. The advantage at the starting line substantial for WJ.
Well, absolutely, the upset of the day. Warren Johnson, you said earlier, the car has been set up to react quicker. It's a good thing. You ran 41, he ran 39. You won.
Oh, perfect. It's been a long time coming, Steve. It's unbelievable.
Tell me about the race from the starting line on.
Well, we knew that Bruce had the performance advantage. There's been no doubt about that all weekend long, so we just had to go for broke on it. It's basically the same thing Butch did against me, and we won this time.
The point standings found Glidden continuing to lead while Bruce Allen moved even closer in second. Johnson was third. Morgan fourth, and Leal in the number 5 spot.
In his pursuit of Bruce Larson's points lead in running car, Kenny Bernstein had a bit of a setback. Round number 2, they blew a motor badly. They torched the hole right in the block, had to change engines. They nursed the new power plant through the semis, and indeed they faced off with Larson in the funny car final at Seattle International Raceway. Now let's recall that Bruce Larson gave Kenny Bernstein a bit of a carrot at the Summer Nationals. Bernstein pulled almost dead even in the points, but then Kenny let it get away from him at Denver and Sears Point. Here he had a chance to pick up at least 200 points on Larson, but Larson drilled him on the starting line. Larson wins by daylight, a 540 to Bernstein's quicker 537. That's how big the whole shot was for Bruce Larson. And it's no wonder there's so many back problems in this sport. If you win, your crews beat you to death on the other end. Kenny Bernstein found himself over 800 points behind Larson after the Seafair Nationals. Oswald third. Don Perdon can't seem to make a move one way or the other. In top fuel, David, this was the car Gary Ormsby used to replace the one he crashed at Sears Point.
And this was the car that he purchased from Larry Minor. We saw it earlier in the season at several races driven by Frank Hawley. Ormsby's semifinal round opponent Joe Amato also had a new car at Seattle, replacing the one he damaged at Sears Point. Ormsby's car just did not react well, and Amato went on to win a 5:07 elapsed time. That moved him into the finals, and Amato giving credit to his crew with that hand-lettered sign. He wanted known who turned the wrenches on that car.
Well, Joe Amato did exactly what he had to do in the Western Swing. We have already showed you him winning in Denver. The bad luck at Sears Point was not a major setback because here at SIR on this day, he beat Dick LaHaye, a 5:01 to a 5:10. And that's about the closest you'll ever see Tim Richards come to boogieing. Joe Amato accomplished a great deal in the Western Tour, winning the Denver event, and then not letting everyone know that the strength of this team was coming back after damaging that car at Sears Point and winning with a brand new mount. No change after Seattle in the top 3 point spots, but LaHaye and Amato definitely closed in just a little bit on Gary Ormsby.
Well, Steve, we all got a week off between the race at Seattle and the next one on the NHRA Winston Tour. It took place in mid-Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. Brainerd, Minnesota, hosting the 8th annual Quaker State North Star Nationals with a huge crowd watching the walking wounded do their thing. Gene Snow was driving with a broken collarbone. Joe Amato driving with a pinched nerve as a result of the problems at Sears Point.
Speaking of problems from Sears Point, Gary Ormsby wasn't over his in the far lane. A huge wheel stamp. The car impacts the wall hard, comes across the racetrack. A frontal assault there. Gary Ormsby destroyed his second car of the year. Miraculously, however, he was unhurt.
While Ormsby may have been physically A-OK, psychologically, he suffered the damage.
Well, I don't know, Steve. I'm pretty disgusted right now, but, you know, it's 2 and 3 weekends, and I really don't know. It just lifted up on me, and you know, when it happens that quick, that your mind's into racing, and maybe I should have got out a little quicker. Too far.
To have your luck change so brutally, so quickly, that has got to be a real head game.
Well, it's pretty devastating, but I guess we'll go back to the coast and put another car together and get ready for Indy.
Oh, I didn't think you were giving up.
No, we're far from giving up.
Easy to say, harder to do. And the men must find another car and have it ready in just 2 weekends for the all-important U.S. Nationals. His crew chief, Lee Beard.
For the second time this season, Beard and the entire crew on Gary Ormsby's car is confronted with the task of rebuilding. Once again, for the next race on the NHRA Winston Tour. Round number 1, funny car eliminator found R.C. Sherman against Jim White. The engine exploded, the fire billowed out underneath the car. White was able to keep it off of the guardrail, and in the center of the racetrack, he brought it to a stop with smoke billowing out of every crevice on that car. The safety safari on the scene, dousing it with water, and somewhere in that cloud of smoke, Jim White got out of the burning car, and the emergency crew checked him over.
All right, here was one of the finest pro stock races side-by-side of the entire season. It was the final round, pitting Bruce Allen up against who else but Bob Glidden, that classic Ford Chevrolet confrontation. Now watch this. This is textbook pro stock racing. You're on board with Glidden. He cut the same exact light that Bruce Allen did. You can see Allen outside his window. They are side-by-side. It was Bruce Allen. 743 to an identical 743. See what I mean, Matt? That might have been the best of the year.
That race was decided by 1,000th of a second and gave Bob Glidden 200 more points in his lead over Bruce Allen. WJ continued third.
And Ed McCullough had an awesome task in the funny car final round to stop Bruce Larson. You'll recall he won the previous race in Seattle, the Seafair Nationals, and here he was again, seemingly unstoppable. It was McCullough in the far lane, Larson in the near lane. McCullough would get the whole shot, but watch Larson's car. Even smoking the tires like that, it runs quicker than McCullough, but loses.
Let the record show that Ed McCullough just did to Bruce Larson exactly what Bruce Larson did to Kenny Bernstein at the last race. You whole-shotted your way to victory.
What goes around comes around, you know.
Did you know who won? It was 1,000th if you do the math.
I tell you, it was so close out there. I thought I was in good shape. The thing left the starting line. It went out there. I didn't see him. I didn't see him. And all of a sudden, I'm going just into the lights. And I sort of looked out there, and there's that red fender. And I said, boy, this is close. But I was pretty sure that I had him.
With Bernstein going out early, he gained no ground on Bruce Larson in the points. McCullough, a good solid third. Don Perdome slipped down to fifth, allowing Mark Oswald to move up a notch.
Steve, without question, the race at Brainerd, the North Star Nationals, marked the return to a competitive position of Shirley Muldowney. In the final round, it was Shirley against Joe Amato. But in the semifinals, Shirley Muldowney was in the far lane of the racetrack against Connie Coletta in the near lane. A slight advantage gained at the start by Shirley. Won her this race as they both ran identical 5.25-second elapsed time. But what a thrill it was to see Shirley Muldowney up against Joe Amato in the final round. Even though she smoked the tires, the lady made some tremendous competitive progress. I talked to Joe.
To come from where we started 15th back and win this race and get all the points, we're going to make a horse race out of this World Championship yet.
And a horse race it was becoming. Amato, 9,422 to Ormsby, shrinking 10,152.
It's Labor Day weekend. What does that mean in the world of NHRA drag racing? Of course, the U.S. Nationals, the biggest event of them all at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And Steve, this one was the 35th annual, and never before have so many people jammed into Indianapolis Raceway Park to watch a drag race.
And I'll tell you, it was a shot they heard fired around the world in qualifying by Don the Snake Perdome. We had a Diamond P camera attached to the rear wing of that automobile on a historic run. You see what Perdome sees. Almost nothing on a 517.
517.
Holy cow! Well, I'm really proud of the car and the crew and everything they've done here. You know, it's just been a struggle, but
it's hard to stun you. I think I just did.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. Wow, that's awesome.
It was in top fuel qualifying that Dick LaHaye in the near lane of the racetrack ran his first 4-second elapsed time. That was the first 4-second time ever at IRP.
Dick LaHaye just heard the PA announcer declare a 4:98. He has become the first man to ever run beneath 5 seconds at Indy.
Steve, I've been...
Don't hurt that back.
Oh, and believe me, that back couldn't get hurt now. I mean, we worked for that all weekend.
Well, he didn't even have the cork out of the champagne bottle when in the next pair, Darrell Gwynn in the near lane, qualifying alongside Gordy Bonnet, ran an even quicker 4-second elapsed time to silence the thunder of Dick LaHaye.
Congratulations, kid.
Thank you very much, Steve. Last minute, you know, we're here at the U.S. Nationals. And this is the biggest race of the year. This is it. I mean,
Was this a goal? It was for LaHaye to get into the fours, not just qualify well.
You know, every time I'm going to get off the subject. Every time we back this car down, it runs quicker. It's telling us something. So we got a good combination to race tomorrow with, and we weren't really planning on coming up here and running a 4, but
you'll take it.
Worked out. You bet.
That 4-second time put him number 1 in qualifying in the second round of competition. Win was against the points leader, Gary Ormsby, and it was Darrell Gwynn winning at 5:04. Then in the semifinals, the 27-year-old Gwynn raced against Eddie Hill. We're on board with Hill. It was Gwynn nipping Hill with a 5:04 at 281 miles per hour. He now starting to collect some points with Ormsby out. Gwynn in the final selected the far lane of the racetrack. It was Dick LaHaye in the near lane. Darrell's dad, Jerry, sharing the intensity of the moment, and problems set in for Dick LaHaye. Gwynn went on uncontested across the finish line, winning at 5:04.
3 times Darrell Gwynn has been disappointed in the final round at the U.S. Nationals. Not this afternoon.
You got it. This is it. I've been here 3 or 4 times in the final. There ain't nothing like winning the granddaddy of them all.
Gary Ormsby continued to lead, but that lead shrunk even more at Indianapolis as Joe Amato moved up, and so did Dick LaHaye. Bob Glidden, who is so used to dominating U.S. Nationals competition here in his home state, found that challenge very, very tough in 1989. He was up against, in the final round, Larry Morgan in that Oldsmobile car. Now, the day before, Larry Morgan won $50,000 in the Mr. Gaskin First Pro Stock Challenge, and here was that final round against Warren Johnson. Morgan in the near lane, a distinct advantage right off of the starting line. He never looked back, defeating Johnson 7:36 to a 7:39. He was on a roll. He waded through the competition on Monday, the U.S. Nationals finals, to come up again. Bob Glidden. Boy, Glidden knew he had his hands full with this one, and he was absolutely right. Glidden did everything right. He left the starting line first. He pulled the levers on time, but he forgot to cross the finish line first. Morgan, the double winner at Indy.
Larry Morgan has picked the granddaddy of them all as his first national event victory. What a drive.
I'll tell you, I told you before I was going to wear Glidden out here because he made me look bad at him. And I'll tell you, it's the only way I could get back at him was here.
The final round appearance by Glidden extended his lead over Bruce Allen. Larry Morgan solidified his position in third. Kenny Bernstein, so serious about the U.S. Nationals, he took the open weekend between Brainerd and Indy to test his car, and the test results were positive. They said he should be able to beat competition like Tom Hoover, especially in round number 1. Now, nobody told Hoover that. Bernstein with big problems. Hoover wins 5:42-2:38. In Bruce Larson's pit area, there was a lot of work taking place. It was a complete engine change to get the vehicle ready. Maynard Yanks, you talk about a brain trust. That's Tim Richards along with the driver, Bruce Larson. They had many
conferences about what to do when they came up to race the quickest funny car of them all, Don Prudhomme.
And let's recall that the day before the Monday finals, much like Larry Morgan, Don Prudhomme also won a special race, the Big Bud Shootout. $50,000 to the winner. The Snake was up against John Force in the final round. We all rode along with John Force, but what we saw was Don the Snake Prudhomme in the opposite lane, a clear-cut winner at another science fiction elapsed time, 5:19. The Snake walked directly to the chairman of the board, the founder of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks, to share that moment. That was wonderful, Dave.
Steve, like Cross talked before, at the finals, the Funny Car Eliminator saw Don Prudhomme, already the champion of the Big Bud Shootout, race against Bruce Larson. And Prudhomme had a substantial victory with a 5:27.
You look back now and believe how flawless this weekend has been.
It's just been wonderful, and I don't even know what the ET was. Can you tell me?
27, does it matter?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's just really running consistent. I wish we could have set the national record while we were here. We were hoping on the last run we'd do it, but there's going to be more races.
And to win the U.S. Nationals in what might be your last appearance in a funny car special.
Yeah, that's what makes it really, really special, because I am going to Top Fuel, and this is where I started out, Indy here, in 65 with a Top Fuel car, and to end my career in a funny car at this race is great.
Kenny Bernstein also announced in Indy his plans to campaign a Top Fuel car next season. Bruce Larson continued to lead the points chase after Indy.
Anybody who thought the season peaked at the U.S. Nationals made a dreadful assumption. And word out, the 5th annual Castrol GTX Keystone Nationals in Maple Grove, Pennsylvania. David, in my mind, this race will go down as one of the real sparklers of the '89 season.
Steve, it was a shocker from start to finish. Nobody anticipated the performance levels that were achieved by the stars of the NHRA Winston Championship Trail. In round number 1 of Funny Car Eliminator, Don Prudhomme raced against Art Hendy. Prudhomme had run a 5:17 in qualifying and was trying for the backup. The best he could run, a 5:24.
Don Prudhomme, you accomplished something here you couldn't do at Indianapolis. You had set the record, but not at 5:17, 5:24.
Well, we still got a lot of work to do. Maybe we can get it down a little bit lower. It didn't leave right. Something was wrong with it up there.
Then, in round number 2 of Funny Car Racing, Mark Oswald wheeled the Candies and Hughes Ford Probe against Tony McCollum in the far lane.
And lo and behold, as you are about to see, Don Prudhomme held that record for a matter of moments as Mark Oswald reset it 5:23.
The record setting continues. You are now officially NHRA's quickest funny car ever. A 5:23 backs up to 21.
I kind of figured it. It felt awful good, It's going to be tough, though. Everybody's right there. The Ford's running good today, and we're going to try to keep it there. But you see the competition, Kenny Bernstein. Now Bruce Larson's right in the game, and, of course, Snake. Everybody's watching him.
That 5:23 backed up an earlier 5:21 for Oswald's record. That brought us to Kenny Bernstein against Bruce Larson. Earlier, it was Bernstein against Scott Coletta.
And what a scary moment. Look at this wheel stand by Coletta. He gets it settled down, but not before he wipes out the timing lights and tags Kenny Bernstein. Coletta was quick with an apology. Kenny quick with an acceptance and some advice. Let him go sooner, kid.
Next close call in round 1 brought the Bernstein Buick against the Oldsmobile of Bruce Larson in round number 2 at the Keystone Nationals.
The way Larson had been amassing points all year long, Kenny Bernstein knew this was his last shot. He had to get Larson now. They loaded the car for bear. They overloaded it. Bernstein smokes the tires.
Kenny, it's never easy on the head to lose, but that is a real bitter pill.
Well, it is. Losing's the toughest thing I do, and my team, Dale Armstrong and everybody. But, it's the way it happens today. Our 5th championship probably has gone out the window now. But you got to take your hat off to Bruce Larson and that crew over there. They've done a great job all year. They're after it. Prudhomme's flying right now, too. But I think Larson has just proven that he's able to do it day in and day out.
What a race it was for the finals of the Keystone Nationals. Bruce Larson, practically a hometown racer hailing from Dauphin, Pennsylvania, was challenged by the ever-popular John Force. On board with Force, he had an advantage off the starting line and never looked back. Force's elapsed time of 5:33, a losing 5:28.
Guy almost red light. I was going to have a heart attack. I can't even believe that. Hey, you know what else is happening?
What?
Snake and Perdome, they're all leaving, and somebody gets to get a crown. I just stepped up here to the plate and took it. What do you think of that?
I think your 33 beat his 28. I love being down there with John Forrest, Dave. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Bruce Larson wouldn't trade his points at that point either. Take a look at that. No way Bernstein's going to catch him. No practical way. Don Perdome might even pass Bernstein before it was all over.
The final round of Pro Stock Eliminator again. Ford versus Chevrolet. Bob Glidden and Bruce Allen, as it has been so many times this season.
But this race had special significance for Glidden. If he could win here, if he could just beat Bruce Allen, it would be his 75th career victory. At half track, it was a pick-em race, but at the finish line, it was Glidden. 7:36 to a 7:37. Number 75 belonged to the man from Whiteland, Indiana. It is all smiles from Bob Glidden. Another milestone in your long career. 75 of them.
I thought that 75th was a jinx, Steve. I'm telling you, we were beginning to wonder.
A little pressure off of that 75th. I know we've made a big deal out of it. All the media has.
Hey, you know, it's another race to us. It's great that it's the 75th, but my gosh, it's the only one we ran today, and it's a good one.
That 75th win gained for the Glidden family this plaque, and it was presented to them by the folks at Winston in recognition of 75 national event victories, and Bob Glidden headed towards his 10th Winston Championship title.
Now, the action was spectacular in Funny Car. Certainly it was great in Pro Stock, but Top Fuel stole the show. Here was Shirley Muldowney racing Gary Ormsby in qualifying. The first two cars down the racetrack, and Shirley Muldowney joins the club. 4.97 seconds. Wow.
It was a very quick ride, Steve, the ride of my life. I was running Ormsby, and I was driving away from him. I knew something was happening. I wasn't quite sure what it was.
Something really good.
Something really good and something out of the ordinary.
And Shirley remained the number one qualifier.
That brought us to round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator. Laurie Johns was in the far lane against Dick LaHaye, and LaHaye took away the record that had been established by Shirley Muldowney. He ran 4:97 and 2:84. Then, continuing on in round number 2 competition, Joe Amato came to the line against Shirley Muldowney.
And no one will ever forget this side-by-side encounter. Shirley Muldowney lost with a 4.97. Amato won with a 4.96. The first ever side-by-side 4-second runs came at Maple Grove, the Keystone Nationals. Shirley concluded this all by driving it into the sand.
Joe Amato, the first ever side-by-side fours, and you, fortunately for you, were on the winning end of it.
Steve, it's a pleasure. And the 496, that's the record. Because we have a 5.0 to Platt to back it up, so that's 200 points if we can hold it. But, you know, to run Shirley and her run 97, 96, that's history.
Round number 2 racing continued with Frank Bradley racing against the points leader Gary Ormsby.
And the record bashing was to continue. Ormsby in the near lane runs away from the tires, looking Frank Bradley to a new top speed record, 291.63 miles per hour.
With all the excitement that took place at the Keystone Nationals, round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator was certainly the talk of this huge crowd. The final pair found Darrell Gwynn in the near lane against Jim Head. Head lost traction. Gwynn went on to win with a 4.96. All 4 of the winners in the second round of racing ran under 5 seconds.
And the beat went on in the semifinals. Gwynn's 4.96 was good enough for a national record. He could reclaim the record, he said at Indy, if he could back it up within 1% here against Dick LaHaye, and he did it. A 4.95 went into the books.
The momentum of the national record carried Darrell Gwynn into the final round, where he raced against the hometown favorite, Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Amato had literally thousands of fans on their feet cheering for him, but it was not his day, as Darrell Gwynn blasted a half a car length victory and another 4.95 for his second win in a row.
Darrell Gwynn has won the U.S. Nationals, now the Keystone Nationals, set the national record twice, and ran his house number. Life is good.
this is it, buddy. It don't get any better than this.
Happy young man. While Darrell Gwynn continued to amass points that solidified his number 4 spot, Gary Ormsby maintained his lead in the Winston standings, but less than 400 points ahead of Joe Amato. The tour packed up and moved from one of the oldest tracks, Maple Grove, to the absolute newest. This, folks, is not the Pentagon. That is Heartland Park, Topeka, one of the most incredible multi-purpose racetracks ever built in this country. Feast your eyes on the future of motorsports. Now, there was a tremendous story going on in pro stock. Joe LaPone had blown an engine in qualifying. He rented a motor from Frank Iaconio. When he had to race Iaconio, he couldn't beat him with his own power plant, so he borrowed an engine from Lee Dean and put it in the car. Now watch this bizarre staging episode. Iaconio, Dave, as you know, likes to go up, put on both lights, and put pressure on the other driver. He did that, but while he was staging, Joe LaPone backed up in a hurry. Before Iaconio even realized it, LaPone shot into the beams, caught Frank with his RPMs down. When starter Buster Count hit the switch, Iaconio wasn't even watching the tree. LaPone takes the win at a 7:51, nowhere near his qualifying numbers, and Iaconio goes down the racetrack kind of scratching his helmet like, what happened? Well, this set up yet another set of weird circumstances.
I haven't seen musical motors in pro stocks like this maybe ever. What's going on, Joe LaPone?
We had the misfortune of breaking both my engines here. To run first round, I talked to Frank Iaconio, and he was trying to sell one of his engines and having a hard time getting it basically in other people's cars, so he put it in my car, and we were second fastest last qualifying round. So then starts the scenario, what do we do on race day? So Frank said I could rent the engine. We all went along, that was fine. I rented it, we came up with an agreed price, made 2 runs. Well, now coming to the semifinals, I have to run Frank Iaconio.
He wants it back.
Not a good thing to beat him with his own engine. So I didn't even ask. We took that out, and Gil Davis from Lee Dean's camp said we could run his engine. We were fortunate enough to get by Frank.
Now Frank's motor.
So now we decided, well, Frank's motor might be a little bit better, but I'm pretty sure it is better from what the last run showed. Nothing against Lee Dean. So now we're going to put that back in for the final.
I want a program, Mac. How about you?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm confused. But all we know is Joe LaPone Jr. is at the starting line racing against the Dodge of Darrell Alderman. For the second time this season, Alderman made it to the final round. And of course, Steve, we all remember what happened at the Gator Nationals. Alderman went into the winner's circle as he did at Topeka, outrunning Joe LaPone with a 7:45 to a losing 7:47.
You earned this one. You outdrove everybody. You outran everybody.
Well, it's about time, Steve. I've been doing such a poor job all year. The cars really ran good all year, and I thank God Wayne County's put up with me. Dodge and Mopar Performance, Excite Edge, they're all great.
While Glidden went out earlier in competition at Topeka, he continued to maintain the lead for his 10th Winston title, a substantial margin over Bruce Allen. Now, maybe Mark Oswald didn't win at Maple Grove where he set the record, but he brought that horsepower to Heartland Park, Topeka, and in the final round, applied it to the Oldsmobile of Ed McCullough. McCullough knew he was a couple of tenths off of Oswald, so what does the crew chief Ernie Bentley do? Well, you load up the clutch and hope it sticks. It didn't. Mark Oswald won it.
You don't win much more convincingly than this man, Mark Oswald. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. This car was really running good today. You know, the Motorcraft car was on all day long, and everybody on the crew performed flawlessly today. You know, and this is our 4th final this year, and we've lost everyone until now, so I'm really happy.
The funny car points, who else would still be on top if you've been watching this tape? Bruce Larson. Kenny Bernstein still in second. Don Perdomas moved up to third. Mark Oswald fourth. Ed McCullough 5th place. The big story in Top Fuel at Topeka was the debut performance of the 4th car of the year for Gary Ormsby. Having used his 1988 car for just a couple of races after the crash in Brainerd, the points leader brought his new 300-inch wheelbase car to Topeka. It fell only a couple of feet short of advancing in eliminations. Amato won the race in round number 2, a 5:11 to a very strong 5:15. Another pair in round number 2. Dick LaHaye going into a slight wheel stand, recovering and driving past Darrell Gwynn.
His elapsed time was a 5:08 to a losing 5:11. And that set up an incredible final round. Shirley Muldowney, her second final of the year. Remember, she made it at Brainerd where she smoked the tires and got beaten. She didn't want that to happen again. Her and Ron Tobler were in deep discussion before they lit that engine because they were going up against Dick LaHaye. Now watch this. Shirley Muldowney got nailed a little bit by LaHaye on the lights. It was just enough. They run identical 5:07s. Shirley again in second spot.
You know, this really tightens up this points race.
You're still in third, but only 300 and some odd out of first.
That's true. And all we can do is just go into the next 3 races and see what happens.
Our hats are off to you.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Gary Ormsby had to be wondering, could he hold on? Only 124 points ahead of Amato at this point. Dick LaHaye just about 300 points back, and Darrell Gwynn not that far away. And it was time for a good old-fashioned Texas shootout at the Motorplex in Ennis, Texas, outside of Dallas, the 4th annual Cheap Auto Parts Nationals, the sport's only all-concrete quarter mile. And this big crowd knew that that means potential records, and also, well, some interesting things can happen because the traction is so good, it finds the weak link in every car. In funny car qualifying, Mike Dunn was in the near lane when the engine exploded. A huge fireball boiled out from underneath that car. Dunn was okay. Also in qualifying, Ed McCulloch against Don Trudeau. McCulloch just recorded the quickest elapsed time in history of 5.13-second elapsed time. And didn't Prudhomme have a great seat for that one? Then it was time for Ed McCulloch and John Force. Now Force gets very close to the wall on the inside lane. At first they thought maybe he hit it. There was not a mark on the car. However, McCulloch did hit the wall on his side and was disqualified. In Pro Stock, round number 1 racing, Bruce Allen was in the far lane. Gary Brown in the near lane. Brown in the Oldsmobile was about a half a car length back. He had a great view when all the action started. Allen crossed right in front of Brown. He slammed into first the left-hand guardrail, then the right-hand concrete abutment. Allen was okay. The car severely damaged. Well, this is one race, Dave. Gary Brown should be glad he lost. He might have been right in front of Bruce Allen when a parachute line apparently broke, caused the car to come right in front of Brown. Now watch Brown drive right through his parachute. That turns Brown sideways. After tremendous frontal impact, it wasn't over yet for Bruce Allen. Now he drives through Brown's parachute and crunches the opposite wall. That Beretta was an absolute mess when it was over. Just stiff and sore was Bruce Allen. Here's Mike Brotherton. He ran in qualifying a speed of over 294 miles an hour to hold the record for a brief period of time. And he set a dubious record in round 1 as the world's fastest and longest blowtorch. A tremendous fire burned all the oil out of the engine. There was none on the racetrack. Gary Ormsby, remember the new car that debuted at Topeka? Was it awesome at Dallas, Mac? It certainly was. Gary Ormsby in round number 1 against Frank Bradley. His 492 backed up his qualifying 491 for the record.
It makes any racer proud to have his name in National Dragster, the official record. But more than anything, Gary, it could mean 200 points. You backed it up a 92.
Oh, that's great. I knew it was a good run. I didn't know how good, but I knew she was awful good. She left really hard, set me back in the seat, and pulled right on down through here.
In round number 2 in Dallas, Dick LaHaye came to the starting line to race against a newly repaired Mike Brotherton, the crew performing miracles between rounds after that exploding engine when Brotherton won the race in the first round. Watch LaHaye. He crossed over the center line when the left rear tire went flat, right in the lights. LaHaye had himself a handful, but pulled off a masterful driving job. But his chances of winning the Winston Championship went out the window with that incident at Texas Motorplex. LaHaye knew that as soon as he got out of the car. Now, Dave, he drives with his hand on the chute handle in case anything should go wrong with the wing or whatever. He takes no chances, and that's what saved him here, kept him right side up, and jerked him back into his own lane. Steve, it is interesting to note how quick things happen. At 280 miles an hour, a top fuel dragster covers the length of a football field in just a hair over a half second.
That's why you drive with your hand on the parachute. Bruce Larson came into Texas Motorplex, of course, with a huge points lead, but he wasn't letting up on the competition. And the competition certainly was not letting up on Bruce Larson. Mark Oswald, in the semifinal round of competition, got the advantage at the starting line and continued to maintain the lead and ran a quicker elapsed time of 5:23 to a losing 5:24. Then in the Top Fuel semifinals came the battle of the Titans, the number 1 and number 2 car on the points. Gary Ormsby, his car in its second outing. Joe Amato was in the near lane. The entire Winston Championship could have been at stake here. What a classic drag race, and it was. Ormsby winning at 498 to a 501. He controlled his destiny on that one. The battle of the Oldsmobiles in the final round of Pro Stock Eliminator at Dallas. W.J. Warren Johnson was in the near lane. The double winner from Indy, the national champion. Larry Morgan was in the far lane. This race was won on the starting line. And Warren Johnson, we told you earlier of his continued improvement throughout the season in his reaction times. He proved it. He beat a quicker ET.
Everybody knows Warren Johnson is a brilliant engineer, engine builder, innovator. Today you were a brilliant driver. Your 31 beats his 29.
Perfect. I can't have a better run than that, really. I mean, the low ET that we got for qualifying, that helps, but come on here, Larry. I mean, 2 Oldsmobiles, I mean, you can't do any better than that.
The battle was for everything except first place, as Bob Glidden still number 1, Bruce Allen second, and Morgan is third, WJ in number 4. The funny car final round pitted a pair of former record holders against each other. I say former because Ed McCullough didn't win the event, but he did lead with a record at 5.18 seconds. It was Don Prudhomme, the U.S. Nationals winner in the far lane. Mark Oswald won one to his credit in the 89 season. Oswald was full of confidence until that happened, until he overpowered the racetrack. Prudhomme took the title at 5:26, 269 miles per hour. And his wife Lynn was part of the crew on this day to get the celebration started. Well, the points showed Bruce Larson, to no one's surprise, still on top, but Don Prudhomme, by that victory, moved into the second position, pushing Kenny Bernstein down to number 3. The final of Top Fuel Eliminator at Dallas found the points leader, Gary Ormsby, in the far lane of the racetrack. Number 4 in the point standings, Darrell Gwynn, was in the near lane. These two cars nearly identical in appearance. Ormsby, unpainted. He just debuted this car a week earlier up at Topeka. They struggled down the racetrack in the quickest side-by-side run in history. Ormsby had a 497. Gwynn lost with a 494. That big win moved Ormsby even further ahead of Amato. LaHaye in third, Gwynn fourth, and Eddie Hill rounding out the top 5. From the flypaper-like traction of Texas Motorplex, all the heroes moved to Firebird International Raceway in Chandler, Arizona, outside of Phoenix. And Dave McClellan, a whole nother set of challenges here in the desert. It is a very nice racetrack, but the altitude much higher than it is in Dallas, the temperature much higher, and the air density considerably less, so the cars can't make the kind of power that they had in Dallas. History was made in the first round of Funny Car as Bruce Larson put away R.C. Sherman, dethroning Kenny Bernstein and taking his first Winston crown.
Well, it's official. The 4-year reign of Kenny Bernstein has come to an end at the hands of this man, the 1989 Winston Funny Car champion. Congratulations, Bruce.
It feels great, Steve. It feels fantastic.
Just the suspense these last few races, wanting to get it over with.
Oh, you can't believe the pressure. You know, people say it was starting to look easy because we had a big lead. It gets worse every day.
At what point in the season did you think the dream was possible?
The first race.
Round number 1 continued at the Castrol GTX Ball Nationals, and kaboom! A Funny Car says hello. Jim White's bad luck continues. A blower explosion raises the body on that car. It had to be shut off. He clambered out unhurt, and Kenny Bernstein had a bye run. Bernstein said goodbye to the number 1 on this pass as Bruce Larson had just taken away his title.
Listen, let me say one thing for Bruce Larson and that team. They deserve it. They won it. The Winston Championship's theirs. They've had a great season the whole year long, and believe me when I say from this team to them, they've done a superb job, and they should be proud of that.
Amen to that. Now, a similar scenario in round 2 of Pro Stock. Actually, all Bob Glidden had to do was show up on the starting line to have clinched his 10th Winston Championship in the category. Glidden added some insurance points here with this drubbing of Kenny Delco. The points battle was over. Bob Glidden had won it once again. Well, there he is, the Winston champ in Pro Stock for the 10th time.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks. We may be the Winston champ already, but I'll tell you, we've got a long way to go in this race.
It's kind of like Bruce Larson. You had a big points lead, but it seemingly has taken forever to get it official.
Well, you know, after the last race at Dallas, when Bruce had the crash and went out early, as far as I was concerned, it was done. But officially, I think it is now.
It is, absolutely.
Thank you.
Round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator found a rematch of that quickest ever race that was run at Dallas. Gary Ormsby against Darrell Gwynn. Ormsby was in the far lane, Gwynn in the near lane, and history was made here as well. Disregard the tremendous start by Ormsby and look at the first ever 4-second elapsed time ever run at Phoenix. Darrell Gwynn at this moment has no bigger fan than Joe Amato. He did what you needed him to do.
Well, he did what we had to do, Steve. Now maybe we can have us a race here, you know. Fine, we got to do good in this race and keep the point pressure on Gary.
Well, you better all watch out for him now.
Well, you know, Darrell's still in there, but maybe he'll be a nice guy and let us win.
All right, let's go to the man of the hour, Darrell Gwynn. No one expected at this racetrack, in this heat, a little bit of altitude, that anybody could run a 4-second elapsed time. They're wrong.
All right, heat of the day, I tell you. We saved the best for Gio. You know, we knew he was going to be tough all day, and 4.99 in Phoenix, man, all in front of all the course people, and I'm just happier than the devil.
Well, Joe Amato may have been happy when Darrell Gwynn took out Gary Ormsby, but I don't think he had a smile on his face when he pulled up alongside Shirley Muldowney in the semis. She was the number 1 qualifier and the car to beat. Plus, she drilled Joe on the light. The head start went to Shirley Muldowney, and she beat him with a slower elapsed time, a 5.16 to a 5.14. Darrell Gwynn now took on the car that was in the number 3 spot in the points chase. That's Dick LaHaye. Gwynn in the near side, remembering his 4.99-second charge in round number 2. Drove around LaHaye and took a 5.03, very consistent elapsed time for the victory. Pro Stock, final round. Bob Glidden was right when he said, well, the championship chase may be over, but this race has a long ways to go. And in the final, he was up against that darned old pesky Dodge that beat him at the Gainesville Gator Nationals earlier in the year, Darrell Alderman. And it was Alderman off the mark first in the far lane. Alderman ahead of the champ. Alderman all the way to the finish line, wins it on a hole shot. 7.42 to a losing 7.40. Darrell Alderman has got a lot to smile about. Did you know you had won?
No, I didn't. That was a close race there. That was a very close race.
And it was a driver's race. Your 42 beat his 40.
Oh my goodness, that's something that hadn't been happening here lately.
You got some pride back on that.
I'm excited.
Well, the Winston champ may take the bulk of the bonus money, but not all of it. Everybody is fighting for their share in the top 10. And here's the top 5 after Phoenix. In Funny Car Eliminator, Bruce Larson took on Don Prudhomme for the Fall Nationals Championship. Earlier, Larson beat Kenny Bernstein. Now, he is racing against the only other 4-time Winston champ in history, and Prudhomme blows the tires off of it. Larson wins not only the Winston title, but the Fall Nationals Championship. Bruce Larson wins his 6th NHRA National event of the year on the same day that you clinched the Winston title. It's a dream.
What a perfect way to end the day.
The car got loose at mid-track.
Real loose, but I saw him fading back, so I figured he was loose at the same time.
So you saw him part of the way down the racetrack there?
Oh, yeah, he was there for about half the track, and then he started to fade.
You know, you won most of your races in the first half of the season. Does it mean something special to get one towards the last lap to prove to people just why you're the champ?
Oh, yeah, we want to go down swinging.
Well, Bruce Larson swung for the fences at Phoenix. Don Prudhomme, with his final round appearance, solidified his second spot with Kenny Bernstein in third, Oswald fourth, and McCulloch fifth. For the fans here at Firebird Raceway, the final round was an emotional one. They loved Shirley Muldowney. This is where she came back after her accident some years ago. The very first track she raced on was right here, and these fans have kind of adopted her, Dave McCulloch. But boy, was she in tough. Up against Darrell Gwynn, the only 4-second competitor ever down this racetrack. Shirley was in the far lane. Darrell Gwynn was in the lane where he ran his 4.99 and a 5.03 in the semifinals, but he watched as Shirley Muldowney leapt on him on the starting line. She ran a slower elapsed time, 5.05 to win it, to Darrell's losing 5.04. But it was an emotional moment in the shutdown area.
Shirley, it's been lonely in the winner's circle without you.
Yeah, it has. We did it.
And you did it on the starting line the way you love to do it.
They had the car for me on the starting line. It just, it made a good lead all day. It kind of faltered in the top end again, and I don't know why, and I was sure he was going to catch me, but he didn't.
You've been winning those bonus checks for $4,000 for low ET and low quality. And those were just teasers, though. When you can't win the race, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, no, I didn't see any of that money anyhow. My team got it because they earned it, but we finally did it. Thank you.
Hard as it is to believe, the Top Fuel Winston title was to be decided at the final race of the year between Ormsby, Amato, and LaHaye.
And that race, of course, traditionally held at the LA County Fairplex in Pomona, California, the 25th annual Winston Finals, the culmination of a 19-event season.
It all started here back in February of 1989. Now 9 months later, with the biggest crowd ever to attend a Winston Finals Championship on hand, the best in this sport of championship drag racing came to the starting line.
Who's the most unlucky man in all of drag racing?
Jim
You
White.
win a prize in the bar lane. Poor old Jim White, one more time flambéed Roland Leong's Hawaiian. A horrendous fire, but again, it is White doing a masterful job, setting off the bottles, getting out the parachute, getting it stopped, and getting out of the thing.
Steve, as Jim White climbed out of this car and was pronounced okay by the safety safari and the emergency medical technicians, he hinted that he may well join Don Prudhomme and Kenny Bernstein at the wheel of a Top Fuel dragster next season.
Well, here's one of the reasons why. Here is Tony McCollum's funny car. Now, this was in the 20 car qualifying as well, and you saw a little bit of nitro leaking out of that fuel system. Well, we apparently were the only ones that saw it. Tony appeared to be, maybe a little bit luckier than Jim White, but not so in the shutdown area. It lit up big time.
The fire not quite as extensive as it was on White's car. McCollum quickly got it to a stop and got out. He was uninjured. Gary Ormsby in Top Fuel qualifying was side by side with Maury Johns when he grenaded one.
What a devastating blow that was to Ormsby's chance for the Winston Finals. At least it appeared to be that way when it happened. I tell you, they saved nothing off of that engine.
Round number one of Funny Car Eliminator, Don Prudhomme against R.C. Sherman. And this was a nostalgic moment because it was the last run down a quarter-mile racetrack by Don Prudhomme in a funny car, and it went up in smoke.
Don, I know you'd hoped to end your funny car career in a more auspicious manner, but thanks for the thrills over the years.
Well, thank you very much. It was an unfortunate way to go out, but we just had a little trouble. It's part of drag racing. We'd hoped to have won the event, but it's the way it goes.
Kenny Bernstein was going through the same kind of emotions as for the last time they latched the body down over him, and he too suffered a similar fate. Now watch, it looks like Bernstein's going to win. Don't bet on it. Jerry Caminito from behind. The big wing on that Top Fuel dragster next year may allow you and your crew chief Dale Armstrong to use all of this power.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, we could sure use it with a Budweiser Quaker State Buick because we need a lot of downforce.
Before the race between Joe Amato and Frank Bradley, we talked to both Ormsby and Amato about what the championship would mean to them.
Well, Steve, it's a lifelong dream for me, obviously. I've been racing these cars for approximately 24 years, and I've really never been in this position before. And, of course, we just hope it all works out for us today.
Joe, you've won the title twice. How would this one be different?
This will put me in a special class with two other luminaries, Garlitz and Shirley, and that's special.
In round number 2, Joe Amato had to beat Frank Bradley to stay alive. If Bradley got there first, the title went to Gary Ormsby. And Amato did just that in fine fashion. 5:14, 279 miles per hour, and the pressure shifted onto the shoulders of Gary Ormsby. Also in round 2, he saw Amato win. He knew that if he could beat Darrell Gwynn, the number 1 qualifier, the title was his. He also knew, as did Amato, nervously pacing, that if Gary was to lose, the door was still open for Amato if he won the event title at the Winston Finals. You talk about nerve-wracking. Darrell Gwynn really appeared to have all the cards. Ormsby did not even have lane choice, and the near lane was considered to be inferior. Watch what happened. Darrell Gwynn red-lighted while Ormsby went up in smoke. If it were not for the red light, Ormsby might not have won his first ever Winston Championship.
Well, guys, Joe Amato just exited here. He personally passed the mantle of the Top Fuel champion to Gary Ormsby. You had the luck that has escaped you all season.
Yeah, we did, Steve, and it's a great feeling right now. I don't think it's really sunk in yet. Joe's a class guy. He came over and thanked me and congratulated me, and so did Darrell.
All the memories of the crash cars and the exploding motors, they fade now.
Oh, I can put all that behind me.
And maybe win this event.
I sure hope so. Thank you.
Round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator saw really the story of the race outside of the Winston Championship, and that was the man in the near lane, Tim Morgan, racing against Dick LaHaye. Morgan, who only runs regionally in California, up down the coast, had an awful fire, even though he defeated Dick LaHaye, sliding around in his own oil. A former drag boat driver who doesn't get to steer these cars very often did a terrific job. Well, the exploded engine brought everybody to Tim Morgan's pit between rounds to help get the car ready for the semifinals. For the drag racers, it was one more last chance to thrash, and they just thrive on it. Eddie Hill's crew, even though they didn't qualify, they got to do some work. Fuzzy Carter, the crew chief on Eddie Hill's car, looking over Tim Morgan's rebuilt machine. There was a final check of this race car by the crew, as in the opposite lane, Joe Amato, having watched his hopes for a Winston Championship evaporate in the previous round, got a break here when Morgan exploded an engine, with Amato running a 5:12 to move into the finals. And speaking of finals, the first one we saw as the sun was rapidly setting featured the 10-time champion, Bob Glidden, his Ford Pro, the always composed Rusty Glidden, his youngest son. But Rusty's nerves were soon put aside as Warren Johnson red-lighted away his chance. The red and white car was cheered on to victory. Glidden winning both events at Pomona.
What a season it has been. So many milestones, Bob. Your 75th career win came in '89, and of course your 10th Winston title.
It's a great season, Steve, and I need to thank the people at Ford. I rarely do this. I never talk about my people.
That's right.
On the air, but we've got the best of everything. We've got our family doing this deal, and Ford Motor Company and Motorcraft, Ford Parts and Service, taking care of us financially. It's been a great season. I'll tell you, and a great way to end it by beating that guy.
Well, here are the final point standings for 1989. Glidden number 1, followed by Allen, Morgan, Johnson, and Alderman with the Dodge. A great showing. But, of course, everybody's hats are off to Bob Glidden. Bruce Larson had the same opportunities at Pomona in the Winston Finals as did Bob Glidden, and that was winning the Winter Nationals, winning the Series Championship, and winning the Winston Finals title. He did that in fine style over John Force. He suffered a slight header fire on the run, but there were no problems for Larson.
You are okay.
Yeah, no fire coming in there at all.
What do you think was going on there?
I don't know. I guess maybe a valve cover gasket blew out. It wasn't anything serious.
You took John Force very seriously. You moved up, staged right away, put a little pressure on him.
Yeah, he's been playing games like that, so I just thought I'd play his own game for him.
It worked very, very well.
We're happy.
The final point standings. Larson first, Prudhomme second, Bernstein in third, Oswald fourth, and Ed McCulloch fifth. Now, Joe Amato may have lost the title to Gary Ormsby, but he was to get one last shot at the man from Roseville, California, for bragging rights and the Winston title of the event. Now, the day before, it was Joe Amato in the winner's circle of the NHRA Top Fuel Classic. $50,000 was on the line in the final round. Amato racing Frank Bradley. Amato having won this race 3 out of 4 years coming into the event. Certainly had his hands full with Bradley in a tremendous side-by-side race. A 5:04 put $50,000 in Joe's pocket. I tell you what, he'd give that $50K back in a hot second if he could have won the Winston title. But that was not today. Now it's all pride at stake, and a power wheel stand for Amato spelled his demise. Gary Ormsby wins the event.
You wanted a shot at Amato. You wanted to leave here saying, I'm the champion. It's no fluke. You got him.
I did, Steve. Thank you. Thank you. We got it. The guys did a wonderful job for me. You know, we had adversity this race and had a little bit of luck in the semifinals, and they put it all back together, and it was a great victory for us.
The final standings in Top Fuel: Ormsby first, Amato second, LaHaye third, Gwynn fourth, and Eddie Hill in fifth. And in an incredible turn of events, all 3 Winter Nationals champions, all 3 Winston Finals champions went on to become the Winston Series champions for 1989. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Drag Racing 89.